Welcome to the weekly Magnum Current Affairs for the section of Polity and Governance. And in this section, let's discuss important news which has appeared in the Hindu and Indian Express. So from the Hindu newspaper, we have taken these important news. These news are: the need for gender equity in urban planning, appeared on 25th June. Home Minister chairs Zonal Council meeting. Governor should not play divisive role in official functions, and 50 years of emergency. So from the perspective of current affairs, let's also understand how they are relevant from examination point of view. So just look at the first news. It says that the need for gender equity in urban bureaucracy. Now overall in this article, what the author has highlighted is that in India, while women's representation in grassroots politics has increased due to 73rd and 74th constitutional amendment, yet there is a need to increase greater women representation in higher echelons of bureaucracy, particularly in administrative cadres. So the author has gone through statistics suggesting that important departments which has an impact or interface, particularly with respect to policies for the development of women and child, in those departments also very less women officers are there. So overall the author has suggested to have more women officers to ensure greater gender diversity. Now regarding the syllabus, it says this gets covered under government strives to have a workforce which reflects gender balance and women candidates are encouraged to apply. So these, based on this understanding, let's go through this particular discussion. So this article, appearing as an editorial or lead article, it says that in the last 3 decades, progressive constitutional reforms have advanced gender equity, and the 73rd and 74th amendment mandate 33% reservation for women in Panchayati Raj institutions and urban local bodies. And we have already seen in the last discussion that the government through 106th constitution amendment also intend to provide reservation for women in Parliament and State Legislative Assembly from 2027 onwards after the census. So it says that further strengthened to 50%, so representation of women in local bodies have strengthened up to 50%, that is reservation by 17 states and a union territory. Today women comprise over 46% of local elected representatives, as according to Ministry of Panchayati Raj in 2024, as a rising presence of mayors and councillors across the panchayats and municipalities. So what the author is saying is that at the lower level, at the grassroots level, okay, at the grassroots level, there is greater gender diversity, if you can call it. There is greater women representation. But when we talk about the administration or the bureaucracy, also policing, so in these areas or in these sections of the government, there is very less women representation. This is what the author has suggested. So important highlights in this regard includes that in 2022, women comprised 20% of IAS merely, and with lower representation in urban planning, municipal engineering and transport authorities. Now why the author has you can say focused on transportation also? Because he says that in metropolitan cities like Delhi and Mumbai, close to Delhi and Mumbai, close to 80% of the population travel in, or 80% of women population travel in public transport. They travel in public transport, and hence there is a need for policies which also are sensitive towards women, particularly in these shared areas where they shared public space with the rest of the world. So it says further 11.7% of national force are women, that too in police, according to Bureau of Police Research and Development report. So in administration and also in policing, the representation of women is very less. Furthermore, it says that use of public transport by women in urban cities and this report is based on an Institute for Transportation and Development Policy and Safety Pin study. So this report has given certain highlights. Let's look into it. It says 84% women in Delhi and Mumbai use shared public transport, and this is the percentage for men is 63%. Then it says in 2019, safety pin audit conducted by this institution, in 50 cities, 60% of public spaces were poorly lit, and hence this becomes a safety concern for women. This becomes a safety concern for women. Now the overall the author is saying that if women officers are there, then at least they will be sensitized to these issues and they will try to at least take care of gender sensitive issues. Further, with few women in policing, community safety initiatives often fail to resonate with women because it lacks public trust, or it lacks trust because the women no longer trust the officials in implementing scheme for their welfare, and hence if there are more women officers in important departments, then this trust, particularly with women, will increase. It further says women needs to be given priority for overall safe atmosphere, and women prioritize issues like water, health and safety and improve public trust in law enforcement. So in those areas where there is a direct interaction with the public, there is a need to increase or have greater women participation or representation also in the bureaucracy. And lastly, it says that gender sensitive design needs gender diverse institutions. So our institutions must ensure this gender diversity. It further says that gender responsive budgeting. Now this article introduces not a new concept but a concept which is generally used, and this concept is referred as gender responsive budgeting, or GRB. Now here basically the budget is made, or money is allocated to different schemes, to different departments, also considering the need of women. And in this regard, it says this gender responsive budget integrates gender consideration into public finance. So basically public finance also starts becoming gender sensitive, so that certain amount of money is definitely provided for women's safety and overall development of women. Now this development of women could be related to their education, could be related to their health, and also could be related to their employability or employment. It further says this promising but underutilized tool in urban governance. So according to the author, this gender responsive budgeting is an underutilized tool, and there is greater scope for this to be utilized in a more efficient way for not only greater participation of women but also to ensure that the delivery of services is women centric, and thereby it increases trust of women with respect to the government services. Further says budgets are not neutral and can reinforce inequities if left unchecked, and India adopted this gender responsive budgeting by Delhi government, Kerala government and Tamil Nadu government, and they applied this across 64 departments. But this is not enough, or rather it was merely implemented, but its enforcement is an issue. This is what the author has suggested. So it says, according to this report, UN Women and the National Institute of Public Finance and Policy, it says most of such efforts suffer from weak monitoring and limited infrastructural capacity, especially in smaller cities. So gender budgeting, particularly for, let's say, local bodies or even state legislative assemblies, it is not implemented in that rigorous manner or with that intensity. Now in this regard, with respect to global gender diversity in terms of global efforts, the author has highlighted some of the examples of different countries. So see, it says Rwanda boosted maternal health and education spending. So here the effect of GRB has been highlighted, how with respect to how different countries have used it or utilized it. So it says Brazil prioritized sanitation and primary health care. South Korea's gender impact assessment reshaped transit and public spaces. Tunisia's parity laws gave women more technical roles, improving focus on safety and health. See, and Philippines uses GRB to fund gender-based violence shelters and child care. So all of these gender responsive budgeting not only inculcates the element of gender sensitivity, but also overall helps to promote welfare schemes for women and children. Now, in this regard, the author has provided certain solution or suggestion, you can say. Providing reservation as part of affirmative action is the start. So the author is saying, yes, reservation is fine, but it needs to be complemented with something else. What is that something else? It needs to be supplemented by scholarships in planning and engineering for women. So here it is also talking about an emphasis on scholarship. What else? Excuse me. There is also need for systemic reforms in recruitment, retention, and also promotion across administrative, policing, and technical roles. So there is a need not only to give women greater representation in these different roles, but they also need to be retained. They also need to be promoted, and so that they also go, or they also take higher post and thereby make policies, gender sensitive policies. Gender balanced bureaucracy is essential for building safer, equitable, and responsive cities, and gender must be mainstreamed into planning and implementation at grassroots level, particularly with respect to the urban local bodies. So these are some of the suggestions provided by the author in this regard. So this is mainly a main centric topic dealing with greater representation of women in Indian bureaucracy, bureaucracy, and also policing. And the thing is, what will be the benefits of greater representation? What will be the benefits of greater representation of women in Indian bureaucracy and policing, and how it will ensure gender sensitive laws, gender sensitive schemes or laws, and also how should gender responsive budgeting should be ensured, so that particular focus is given towards providing opportunities to women and children. So this is the crux of this particular discussion. Now this discussion becomes important because I think in 2022 in the mains examination a question was asked regarding greater representation of women in Indian judiciary. So on same account a question can also be framed that elaborate or discuss the need for greater women representation in Indian bureaucracy and Indian policing. Now moving to the next topic. Now this topic is with respect to the zonal council, and recently the Union Home Minister, who is the chairman of zonal council, he chaired the zonal council for central zonal council. So what we need to know, the different types of zonal council, how it is constituted. So the news says, this I have taken from PIB, and also it appeared in the Hindu newspaper, that Union Home Minister and Minister of Cooperation Shri Amit Shah chairs 25th meeting of Central Zonal Council in Varanasi, Uttar Pradesh. And it says the role of zonal council is advisory. However, over the past few years, these councils have proven to be an important factor in promoting healthy bounds of mutual understanding and cooperation in various fields. Now please understand, the zonal council was constituted under the State Reorganization Act. It's constituted under State Reorganization Act. Hence, zonal council are statutory bodies. Next, zonal councils help to settle issues between different states. So in this regard, it also facilitates cooperative federalism. It also facilitates cooperative federalism. And not only cooperative federalism, it also acts as a body to facilitate development in respective states. So these can be said to be overall important highlight of zonal council, and of course the Union Home Minister is the chairman of zonal council. So based on this, let's quickly go through important highlights of zonal council. So it says member states. So what were discussed at this particular zonal council, at this meeting? So before that, it's important to understand the different types of zonal councils. So there are 5 zonal councils overall. As you can see, there are Northern Zonal Council, Central Zonal Council, Eastern Zonal Council, Western Zonal Council and Southern Zonal Council, and each zone comprises of different states and union territories. So accordingly, this zonal council meeting, Central Zonal Council meeting, it highlighted that member states were asked to increase the revenue of gram panchayats and to formulate rules for this purpose. So it is not only as a body for cooperative federalism, but it also ensures development in respective states. It says, he said that enhancing the revenue, that is, Home Minister said that enhancing the revenue of panchayats would make India's 3-tier democratic Panchayati Raj system more effective. Obviously, if the local bodies have greater financial autonomy, greater provisions or greater alternatives to raise revenue, obviously they will become more autonomous, they will become more strengthened, and hence their financial strength needs to be raised. And this is what was highlighted in the zonal council meeting. Further, what was suggested was implementation of fast-track special courts for speedy investigation and prompt disposal of rape cases against women and children. So see, another gender-sensitive issues, particularly with respect to brutal issues such as rape. And here, the Home Minister suggested that there should be fast-track special courts to deal with such brutal cases, and provision of brick and mortar banking facilities within the designated radius of every village. So this will ensure financial help or financial inclusion to those who need finance or those who need loan for any aspect of livelihood, and says an implementation of emergency response support system. So these were some of the highlights with respect to the decisions or discussions which took place at the Central Zonal Council. So keep these things in mind, because these topics in that way also becomes important from your current affairs perspective. Now, zonal council we have already seen. Other important aspect of zonal council is that each zonal council has set up a standing committee which comprises of the chief secretaries of member states and in their respective zonal councils. These standing committees meet from time to time to resolve the issues or to do necessary groundwork for further meetings of the councils. Chairman is the Union Home Minister, and Vice Chairman is the Chief Minister of the state included in each zone. So a Chief Minister of one state is chosen based on the method of rotation, right? So all the states in a particular zone, by rotation, each of the Chief Ministers successively becomes the Vice Chairman of that particular meeting, and other Chief Minister becomes the member of the meeting. So it says the Chief Minister of the states included in each zone act as Vice Chairman of the Zonal Council for that zone by rotation, and each holding office for a period of 1 year at a time. Members include other Chief Ministers who are not Vice Chairman, and 2 other ministers as nominated by the governor from each of the states, and 2 members from union territories included in the zone. Further, advisors include various officers appointed by the state government, including chief secretaries and other secretaries or other development commissioners or any other officers. And lastly, it says union ministers are also invited to participate in the meetings of zonal councils depending upon their necessity based on the topic which are being discussed. So these are some of the important highlights with respect to zonal council. So zonal council also act as a body to facilitate cooperative federalism, and not only that, it also discusses various developmental and other issues which are important for that particular region. So it says the zonal council provide an excellent forum where irritants between center and states and among states can be resolved. through free and frank discussion. And the main objective of setting up of zonal councils are as under: bringing out national integration, arresting the growth of acute state consciousness, regionalism, linguism and particularistic tendencies. So basically, not to create or to ensure that whatever tensions have been created between different states, those tensions are settled down or those tensions are resolved. Enabling the center and states to cooperate and exchange ideas and experiences, and establishing a climate of cooperation among the states for successful and speedy execution of developmental projects. So it not only facilitates development aspects, various aspects particular related to development in the different states, but also tries to iron out any differences between the states. Now, other than zonal council, there is one interstate council. Now the provision for interstate council has been provided under the constitution under article 263, and it was constituted based on presidential notification in 1991 upon the recommendation of Sarkaria Commission. So remember that. Okay, moving to the third topic. This appeared in today's Hindu newspaper, written by PDT Achari, and hence it becomes important to read. So it says a lofty concept, a governor and unwanted controversy. So this is regarding the controversy which you must be reading in the news regarding the governor of Kerala. And it says that there is a deep and emotional bond with the concept of Bharat Mata, but all constitutional authorities are bound by the framework of the constitution. Now, in such situations, let's not look into the controversy as such, but rather, since it's talking about governor and constitutional provisions, let's quickly go through the constitutional provisions with respect to governor and also understand the important position of governor regarding syllabus, structure, organization and functioning of the executive as it gets covered with respect to state executive. Now, talking about governor, now look here very carefully. It says, Article 153, there shall be a governor for each state, provided that nothing in this article shall prevent the appointment of the same person as governor for 2 or more states. So one governor can be appointed for 2 or more states. First point. Next, executive power of the state. Executive power of the state shall be vested in the governor and shall be exercised by him either directly or through officers subordinate to him in accordance with this constitution. So executive power of a state is vested in the governor, and the governor of a state under Article 155, governor of a state shall be appointed by the president by warrant under his hand and seal. Further, the governor shall hold office during the pleasure of the president. Now this is important to understand both these provisions. Article 156, that is governor shall hold office during the pleasure of the president, and Article 155, that is the governor of a state shall be appointed by the president by warrant under his hand and seal. Now please understand that position of governor is a very important position. So he is appointed by the president. The governor is appointed by the president, and governor serves under the pleasure of the president. Serves under the pleasure of the president. Now this pleasure is not that of the president directly, but rather this pleasure is that of the Union Council of Ministers and the cabinet headed by the Prime Minister. So in that sense, the governor acts in 2 capacities. Since he serves under the pleasure of the president, indirectly under the pleasure of the central government, so he is a limb of the state, a limb of the center, or an agent of the center. And second, since the executive power of the state is vested in the governor and he exercises his executive power through officers subordinate to him, hence based on that understanding, he is also head of the state. He is also head of the state. Now the position of governor becomes crucial because governor serves under the pleasure of the central government indirectly. So the central government can anytime remove the governor. Although the constitution says that governor holds office for 5 years, but it also says that he can even continue further, but does not say anything that whether he can be removed prior to 5 years or not. The answer is yes, he can be removed. So his pleasure is actually subjected to the will of the central government, and in that ways governor becomes the agent or the limb of the center, and through the governor the center seeks all report of the state, Now interestingly, there is another provision which is actually related to this, is Article 356, that is failure of constitutional machinery. Now here say the article reads that either on the governor's report or otherwise the president may impose Article 356. It means that if the state is not carried on in accordance with constitutional principles, then the central government may suggest or may understand that a situation has arisen whereby which can be said to be failure of constitutional machinery of state. So in that regard also the role of governor becomes important, and when a governor gives this report under Article 356, he does not take advice of Council of Ministers, and the Chief Minister. So in this way he acts in his discretion. And under Article 356 there are two aspects. The state government can be removed, or the state government can be put in suspended animation. So we see the role of governor is very important and at times also politically used. It has happened in the past. It has been politically used, or you can say misused. So it is in this regard the author suggests that the governor must follow constitutional norms or constitutional propriety. So it further says that the governor may by writing under his hand addressed to the president resign his office, and subject to the foregoing provisions of this article, a governor shall hold office for a term of 5 years from the date on which he enters upon his office. So 5 years has been provided, but it also says that provided that a governor shall not, withstanding the expiration of his term, that is even after 5 years, he can continue to hold office until his successor enters upon his office. So he can continue even beyond 5 years, or his tenure can be curtailed even prior to 5 years. This is an important learning from these provisions. And qualification includes no person shall be eligible for appointment as governor unless he is a citizen of India and has completed 35 years of age. So these are important highlights with respect to governor. Now another important aspect is this one, Article 163. Now generally the governor is supposed to function with respect to bills based on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers, but governor is given slightly different position, and that slightly different position is that he on certain occasion he may differ with the view of the Council of Ministers and need not approve the bill, and he may reserve the bill for the consideration of the President. So it says that under Article 163 there shall be a Council of Ministers with the Chief Minister at the head to aid and advise the governor in exercise of his functions, except in so far as he is by or under the Constitution required to exercise his functions or any of them in his discretion. Hence certain discretionary powers has been given to the governor. But what discretionary power has been given to the governor? The Constitution does not define it. It simply says the word discretion. It has not defined the word discretion. So understanding various discretionary powers, we can say reserving a bill for consideration of the President under Article 201 and also Article 200 are discretionary power, meaning in these decision making the governor does not consult the Council of Ministers. The governor does not take advice of Council of Ministers. Next, appointing Chief Minister of State under Article 164 or leader of a single largest party, particularly if there is a hung assembly. Dismiss any ministry. Chief Minister in Council holds office during the pleasure of the governor. So the question is, can the governor dismiss any ministry just like that? No. There are constitutional safeguards or there are constitutional limitations on this exercise of discretionary power as well. Governors report under Article 356 in case of failure of constitutional machinery in states. Now in this regard, please understand there is one constitutional provision which you should know. That is Article 355. Article 355 says that it talks about the issue of internal disturbance. So center needs to protect states in two circumstances. First, in case of internal disturbance, and also in case of external aggression. So you can say external aggression. So you can say that Article 355 can become one of the reason to implement or to invoke both Article 356 because of internal disturbance and Article 352 because of external aggression. So Article 355 can be used to invoke national emergency on grounds of external aggression and Article 356 because of internal disturbance. Although this word internal disturbance is not mentioned under Article 356, but as a ground under Article 355. Remember this, a question was asked by UPSC on this point. And further, on administration of certain tribal areas, governor need not take advice of the council, particularly in Assam, Manipur, Nagaland and Arunachal Pradesh. So these are some of the discretionary powers of the governor. Now Ponchi Commission has suggested that in case of a hung assembly, this is the order which must be followed by the governor. Considering first preference, he must consider or give opportunity to any pre-poll alliance. So let's say a pre-poll alliance have secured enough votes, then the governor must allow the those coalition partners of pre-poll alliance. Group, party or coalition commanding maximum support. So that political party or group of political party which commands maximum support. Now here this is the discretionary power of the governor, or to a single largest party, post-election coalition if any, and post-election coalition with outside support. So basically this should be the order of preference which should be followed by the governor based on Ponchi Commission's report, particularly in cases of hung assembly. And regarding the issue of politicization of governor, since governor is appointed by the central government and generally acts at its behest, so in that regard, Sarkaria Commission gave certain suggestions. He said that a governor should be eminent in some walk of life, should be a person from outside the state so that he is not involved in day-to-day politics of the state. He should be a detached figure, he or she should be a detached figure and not too connected with the politics of the state. He should be a person who has not taken too great part in politics generally and particularly in recent past, and in selecting a governor in accordance with the above criteria, persons belonging to minority group should also continue to be given a chance. So these are again recommendations of Sarkaria Commission regarding appointment of governor who should be neutral. Now on a related topic, since we have started discussing about Article 355 and also proclamation of emergency and also the fact that it completes 50 years since emergency was invoked. So it says in the explained section of Indian Express, emergency and its lessons. The 21 months period from June 25, 1975 to March 21, 1977 saw the government of Indira Gandhi suspend civil liberties, curtail press freedom, make mass arrest, cancel elections and rule by decree. So you see, in emergency, the federal nature of the government converts into a unitary nature, and hence Parliament starts controlling many aspects of lawmaking. Parliament starts controlling many aspects of lawmaking, even for those topics or those subject matter which are under state list. Okay, this is one impact of Article 352. Now, prior to Constitution 44th Amendment, fundamental rights were being curtailed. But post Constitution 44th Amendment, there has been a change in this. And the change is that Article 19 can be curtailed on certain occasion. However, Article 20 and 21 can never be suppressed, can never be curtailed under any circumstances. So these are the welcome changes post Constitution 44th Amendment. And in this regard, let's quickly go through the provisions of Article 352. So it says, if the President is satisfied that a grave emergency exists whereby security of India or any part of the territory thereof is threatened, whether by war, external aggression or armed rebellion. Now earlier the word was internal disturbance, now the word is armed rebellion, and by proclamation make a declaration to that effect. So a proclamation for emergency under Article 352 can be invoked either in the whole of the country or in certain part of the country, and even in a certain part of the country different proclamations can be issued. Let's say 2 proclamations are issued or 3 proclamations are issued, and it is highlighted here that the power conferred on President by this article shall include power to issue different proclamations on different grounds, being war or external aggression or armed rebellion or imminent danger of war or external aggression. So it's not necessary that war or external aggression or armed rebellion has happened. Even if there is an imminent danger of it, then this proclamation can be issued. Now this part was added by Constitution 38th Amendment. Please remember this. So talking about grounds of war, grounds of proclamation, war and external aggression are if emergency is imposed on these 2 grounds, it is referred as external emergency, and on armed rebellion, then it is referred as internal emergency. Earlier the word was internal disturbance, substituted by Constitution 44th Amendment. So it says proclamation need not extend to the whole of the country and may be restricted to certain parts, and proclamation of emergency may be made before the actual occurrence. Okay, it can be made before the actual occurrence. President can also issue different proclamations, which we are seeing added by Constitution 38th Amendment. Now this says the Constitution 42nd Amendment enabled President to limit the operation of national emergency to a specific part of India, and the term internal disturbance has wider meaning than term armed rebellion. That's why the term internal disturbance was removed, because it gives a greater discretionary power to the government to impose emergency. Now if you look at this question asked last year in the prelims, then it is asking about the parts of the Constitution in which emergency occurs and along with other areas. So if you see, then emergency occurs in part 18. So now we also need to remember this. And in this, all these statements, that is power of municipalities, are given in part 9A of the Constitution, emergency provisions under part 18, and provisions related to amendment of the Constitution under part 20. All of these are correct, hence the correct answer is D. So you see, you also need to know about these parts. Now another important point I would like to refer is with respect to the word cabinet. Now the word cabinet is nowhere mentioned, and now post Constitution 44th Amendment, what the criteria has been that Prime Minister alone cannot ask the President to impose Article 352. This request must be made along with the members of Union Cabinet, that too in writing, shouldn't be oral. Earlier it was oral. So see, it says that the President shall not issue a proclamation under clause 1 unless the decision of the Union Cabinet, that is to say, the council consisting of the Prime Minister and other ministers of cabinet rank appointed under Article 75, that such a proclamation may be issued has been communicated to him in writing. That is, it must be communicated to the President in writing. This is another safeguard added post Constitution or through Constitution 44th Amendment. Now regarding time period, 6 months at a time has to be approved by special majority, and every 6 months it needs to be passed by both houses of the parliament by same majority and can continue for indefinite period of years. So it says parliament fails to approve such a proclamation by special majority in Article 352 clause 6, then it ceases to be in operation on the expiry of 1 month after the proclamation is made. So once a proclamation under Article 352 is made, once a proclamation by the President is issued under Article 352, then the Parliament has 1 month to get it approved by the requisite majority, that is special majority, which is equal to total membership of the House plus 2/3 of the members present and voting. Further it says, if Parliament approves such a proclamation, then it will be in force for 6 months and then it requires subsequent parliamentary approval every 6 months. Emergency under Article 352 can be extended to an indefinite period subject to parliamentary approval every 6 months. And this provision for periodical parliamentary approval was also added by Constitution 44th Amendment. And earlier it was, once emergency was invoked, it can be continued forever. So now there are parliamentary checks through Constitution 44th Amendment. Now it further says that if emergency is issued at a time when Lok Sabha has been dissolved, or the dissolution of Lok Sabha takes place during the period of 1 month without approving the proclamation, then the proclamation survives until 30 days from the first sitting of Lok Sabha. So let's say during this 1 month period, Lok Sabha is dissolved. So from the time a new Lok Sabha is constituted, from there 30 days further, till that time, 30 days further. In that time, it needs to be approved by both houses of the parliament. Now coming to the real aspect of impact of imposition of Article 352. What is the real impact? First, transformation in the nature of federalism. As I've told you, Parliament gets power to make laws on state list under Article 250. State legislature continue to operate as usual. State assemblies are not dissolved. But Parliament gets power to frame laws under state list even on matters with respect to finance or taxation related issues. So it says it affects normal distribution of legislative, executive and taxing powers. Parliament can make law on any matter under state list. Such a law operates till 6 months after the proclamation ceases to operate. So whatever law Parliament makes under Article 250, these are temporary laws. These are not permanent laws. State legislature continue to operate as usual. Parliamentary law, if made under Article 251 during emergency on state list, will override state law. So even with respect to repugnancy between parliamentary law and state law, parliamentary law will prevail. And after 6 months of ending of emergency, normal distribution of legislative power is restored. But during emergency, the legislative power of Parliament overtakes the legislative power of the state. Center empowered to issue directions under Article 353 to states, because legislative power is coextensive with executive power and vice versa. So it says center can direct states as to manner in which it intends to exercise its executive powers. Center can give direction to states for laws, even for laws made under state list by the states. And Parliament under Article 353b can confer powers and impose duties upon center or its officers, even though the law is not within legislative under union list. Basically, Parliament gets complete control to make any law or to give executive order to the state even under state list. Center can issue directions even to states where proclamation not issued, because ultimately there is an imminent danger of either war or external aggression or armed rebellion. That's why. So it says when emergency is declared only in part of India, then executive power of center to give directions and power of parliament to make laws on those state subjects can extend even to states where proclamation is not issued under Article 352 and whose security is not threatened. This makes the proclamation effective even for such states by restricting undesirable activities. Another important point, center not obligated to distribute revenue to states during proclamation because center needs as much as financial help during those times to battle the enemy. So it says President may by order direct that any provision of Article 268 to 279 regarding revenue distribution, revenue sharing with states shall take effect subject to certain exceptions or modifications, or whatever laws are passed by state with respect to their financial matters will be subject to parliamentary approval. It frees the center from any obligation to transfer revenue to states during emergency to ensure its own financial capability to deal with such emergent situation, because the center needs money and hence during those times it need not transfer revenue to the states or taxes or sources to the state, which it generally does in normal times. It also orders suspending distribution of revenues to be laid. Such order, suspending distribution of revenues to be laid before both houses of parliament, and such suspension would not remain in force beyond the end of financial year in which proclamation ceases to operate. So again, all these things are temporary till the time 352 is there. It's not permanent. Fifth, Parliament can also levy any tax which ordinarily falls under state list to fulfill financial needs. So basically Parliament has all the power, legislative and executive, even under state list during emergency. Sixth, life of Lok Sabha can be extended beyond its period of 5 years, period by Parliament by law, for 1 year each time, up to a period not exceeding beyond 6 months after the emergency ceases to operate. So it can be extended 1 year each time, but not beyond 6 months once emergency ceases to operate. Same rule is applicable for state legislature. So it says Parliament by law can also extend life of state legislature by 1 year each time, subject to a maximum period of 6 months after emergency has ceased to operate. And last point, proclamation of emergency under Article 352 also affect fundamental rights under Part 3 except Article 20 and 21 according to Article 359. So under Article 359, the right to move to court is suspended for all fundamental rights other than Article 20 and 21. So even someone's fundamental rights under Article 20 and 21 are suspended, then they can move to court even during emergency, but this right to move to court is not applicable, is not allowed with respect to other fundamental rights under Article 359. So these are some of the impacts with respect to emergency under Article 352. So since 50 years of proclamation of national emergency has happened, so it's possible that a question can be asked in your mains examination either with respect to the process of implementation of Article 352 or the impact of Article 352. In either case, this provision is very crucial for your upcoming exam. So these were the important topics to be discussed for this week's Magnum Current Affairs for the section of Polity and Governance. Thank you very much.